we go. Other people frantically studying. Okay, so they have their book open or their notes and they're looking at me and trying to cram all this information in at the last minute. And then finally, here's what I say. I say to everybody, okay, time for the test. You need to close everything up and put it off to the side or on the floor. So half the people who are doing this say, okay, and then they do it. But there's always at least 1, 2, 3 people who keep the book open and they're still studying and they're looking at me. And I finally say, okay, you need to close it up. And so this is what they do. Okay. And they say, okay, I'm ready. And I think what's going through their mind is, I'm the smartest person in this class because I used every minute of study time until the test. But my attitude about studying in those last minutes right before the test is the same one that I mentioned up here, and that is, unless you haven't studied at all, anything you see at the last minute in your book or notes is much more likely going to do something negative than positive, start to cause you to panic because you forgot something. Same example as before. So it's a lot better to just sit there, breathe, relax, etc. And then there's one other idea that may sound a little bit strange to you at first, but I always think this is a good idea too, especially in a big classroom. When you go in on the day of a test and you're there 5, 10, 15 minutes early, that means hardly anybody's there. So you have your choice of wherever to sit. Where should you sit? And I've had people say front, the back, the left, the right. You know, people say all kinds of ideas. Well, one little idea to throw out there is front is good on the day of a test, even if normally you sit somewhere else. And the main reason is this: who gets their test first, usually? People in the front. And if you're in a classroom, not like this, but that has, you know, rows of chairs, you've probably had the experience of being in the middle to back of a classroom and the teacher counts out 10 copies and then the person gives 9 behind them and they take forever to get the test back there and you're looking like this, and by the time you get it, the people in the front have already been working for maybe a minute or two. And I know it's just a minute or two, but it's a minute or two. You're trying to get every advantage you can. But the other suggestion, that the official one, is this. And that's sit alone. Be antisocial. Usually social's good. But in this case, sit alone. Why is that? Well, it's the same basic idea here, and that is to avoid distraction and to avoid confusion. So I'm going to give you 2 quick examples of this. In my first year of college, I made a huge mistake twice, about 1 week apart, and then I learned don't ever do that again. And I don't know if this has ever happened to anybody in here, but I walked into a classroom that was probably twice as big as this one, and I was about 10 or 15 minutes early, and hardly anybody was there. There were just a few students kind of sprinkled in the classroom, and I, for some reason, walked and sat right behind 2 students who were sitting together. And as I closed my eyes to breathe and all of that, like I said before, they started talking to each other. And what do people usually talk about right before a test? Yeah, they talk about how nervous they are, and they also talk about the test, you know, the information, right? Well, if I'm sitting there and they're like 3 feet in front of me and I'm closing my eyes trying to mind my own business, be in my own world, I can't help but hear everything they're saying. And the first time this happened, one person said to the other one something like this. I can't remember the name, but it was like this. Who was John Smith again?